We have a president who is really just colluding with Russia. And like, I'm just discussing things that I see with my own eyes on the news. But I think if we discuss this kind of a possibility or perhaps reality, the question that my viewers in Ukraine want to have an answer to is, where is like the ambulance? Where's police? Where's what's going on? I say, well, that's kind of going to be difficult right now because there's no mental health requirements. And police is, run by the sheriff who is appointed by the president. So, I mean, we're looking at a situation where we have to defeat this now at election time, which is a little strange if you think about the kind of damage being done. Therefore, we continue to hope and pray that the economy will send the message that the voters were not able to send in November, because we have a lot of problems. And lack of trust is ultimately what this is about. Because when Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin have a conversation and they can trust each other, we can't trust them. Nobody can trust Putin. Nobody can trust Trump. So this is a really fundamental challenge here. Is Donald Trump trying to sell Ukraine with Ukraine's permission or without Ukraine's permission, and with Ukraine's acquiescence or without Ukraine's acquiescence? And if American civil society can acquiesce easier because we have less at stake at this point, Ukraine's acquiescence and surrender to Russia and to Trump/Putin's demands will carry a far heavier toll and price. So it may not be a situation where acquiescence just to make nice will be acceptable. And that means that Donald Trump will say that he's ready for peace as he understands it, and Vladimir Putin is ready for peace as he understands it, and it is only Ukraine which is evidently not ready for peace however it understands it. It doesn't really matter. And it's a challenge that I think Ukraine needs to understand in terms of time. This is a matter of time before situation will get worse. And whether a situation gets worse slowly or faster, I mean, even the idea of the conditions that are now set out by Putin essentially demand that Ukraine agree to end military aid from United States. See, so now Trump can turn off the spigot, but this time with Ukraine's permission. That is so much better. It's so much nicer and cleaner because it's not him that's turning off military aid. It's Ukraine that's saying, we agree to your demands. And of course, the question is whether Ukraine will agree to these demands or not. And I usually say that only Ukrainians can make that decision, which is what I believe. But it is my also impression that Ukrainians will not accept those terms because the list of terms, which also includes possibly the legalization or recognition of Crimea, is a non-starter with Ukrainians. It's a point of great contention that people in Russia and Ukraine would ask each other before the big invasion whether Crimea, was Crimea Ukrainian or Russian? But now, if Donald Trump decides to recognize Crimea, that means that the whole world may call Crimea Ukrainian, but Donald Trump and Republican Party members who want to be in good standing will want to insist now that Crimea is actually Russian, which will allow us to have the same conversation in America as they do in Russia, which is who does Crimea belong to? So it makes these really big foreign issues really somehow personal to us in a way that really shouldn't be happening. This is politicization of our foreign policy. This is politicization of our national security and our defense. And that is just dreadful. But that is the outcome of this conversation, which, of course, as I understand Donald Trump said, or somebody characterized as moving us further away from World War III. And knowing the kind of characters and messages involved, I feel safe to say that the situation is moving a step closer to World War III with every conversation that Trump and Putin have, because they escalate their desires and their wishes list. And then if the world doesn't comply with this pretty tall order, then I guess it is the world that is at fault.
Once upon a time we discussed with you dark test, and it seems to me that Crimea test is rather more realistic even in such cases. Really, this question are like big test for different Russian leaders who are against Putin, but sometimes when you asked which Crimea is a peninsula, this question makes trouble to them. It seems to me that the biggest trouble and the biggest mistake of Donald Trump, and you mentioned about it, Yuri, too, that he trusts Putin. But it is a problem, and it can be our problem, but only Ukraine, and we are just ready for peace, for fair peace, not Russian Federation or the United States with Donald Trump. I mean, and our readiness destroys all agreements between Trump and Putin, yes?
Perhaps. I think that is a beautiful comparison with the Russian opposition and how they deal with the question of Crimea, because it does put them at ill ease that they're not able to really discuss this. Even Navalny, the legendary Navalny, had trouble with this issue of Crimea. So can we see that Crimea will divide the entire world into two? Ultimately, it's all about Crimea. Perhaps, I think an important part of the ideology of Trumpism and Putinism is denial. Denial of what reality is, that Crimea, of course, is Ukrainian, and denial of that fact. And you have to deny that if you want to be on good terms with Putin and now with Trump, essentially. And it's important to acknowledge that in the news story that brought us this highlight that he's talking about it's been mentioned that he's been saying this for years. So this is not even a new idea to him that Crimea is Russian. So he's always been, so for those that would decide based on that question, I think the answer has been pretty clear on that one for years as well. But that's okay. People, sometimes people say, why didn't somebody tell this to me before the election? I don't know. I mean, did you ask? I mean, it's like really available information is there. It's cited from just old articles. But, people have this kind of like, oh, had I only known. Well, you know what? That's how it works. And in the meantime, I can only hope that we're going to limit this question to hypothetical things for America, like Crimea, instead of like Alaska. Who's Alaska? Is it Russian or is it American? Because, Donald Trump / Vladimir Putin, I don't know, Elon Musk, think that maybe Alaska was unfairly purchased. And, there's some kind of a deal that has to be worked out, and just let's give, who knows? Because, and then we'll be denying something or other involved with that process again. It's the tactics never change.
Yes, and you were right when after these telephone negotiations between Trump and Putin, almost all Ukraine, half Ukraine became red, really. We heard air raid and we heard explosives in Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. So when Putin breaks all agreements, how will Donald Trump act in such a case?
I think it's pretty clear that he will not blame Vladimir Putin. I think it's pretty clear that he will find somebody else to blame. It's not going to be himself. It's going to be whoever was there before him, whatever was the past manager of this hotel was. Joe Biden. Joe Biden is the one at fault because he was the last one in charge. But this is why, on one hand, this is the question that Vladimir Zelensky asked on one of our, I feel it is 2 national days of shame, February 28th, when at the White House, Zelensky asked the question of Vice President Vance, saying, considering that Putin broke every agreement and every truth, how can you call that diplomacy? It's a hard question to answer, even, if you're not trying to be agitated. And if you're trying to be agitated, agitated, aggravated by things that this other person is likely to say, then it's a beautiful opportunity to be set off, because those types of rhetorical questions, because it's obvious you can't make deals with Vladimir Putin. It's very obvious. The answer is right there, because he breaks every deal that he makes.